Okay, so today's webinar is being presented by Gary Owen with MITS, with further presentations from Brad Haskins, Mark Roebuck, and Tommy Thompson. Welcome all four of you guys, and go ahead with the presentation, Gary.
All right, thank you so much, Gary. I really appreciate everyone's time and attention today. You know, it's a fantastic opportunity that we have in this relationship with the user group, with the TUG group, and we really enjoy being able to do these types of things. So thank you all for joining. Also, thank you to the guys that are joining me today on the webinar. So I figured we'd throw together just a little bit of an outline of agenda. The goal for this presentation is largely for these guys to give you all an impression and a feeling and a sense and some communication around their experiences that they've gone through being partners and clients of ours. And so we wanted to go through that, and I thought a real simple way to do that would just be to put kind of a 5-point agenda in place. These are the things that we're going to cover today. The who's, the why's, the what's, a little bit about adoption and transparency. Who, we're going to get to know these guys a little bit. Why, we're going to learn a little bit about why they decided to start running their businesses and start transitioning their culture to being more of a data-driven type organization, and why MITS was a good fit for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what MITS is, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of their perspectives on how they'll describe these different pieces of the products and how they all kind of fit together. And then the adoption and transparency piece was some stuff that came out of some conversations we had in prepping for this webinar. So really excited to get into those pieces. So the who. Who are we? Who are these folks? Well, I'm going to go and let them introduce themselves to you, and we're going to go ahead and do this in alphabetical order based on first names. So Brad, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Gary. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join in today.
Absolutely. So can you tell everyone just a little bit about yourself and your background, kind of how you came to where you are today?
Sure. I work for a company by the name of Vesco Oil Corporation. We're a premier regional distributor of quality automotive and industrial lubricants. Joined Vesco about 21 years ago, was a sales rep, and evolved through different roles, and I'm currently one of the service managers with one of our divisions here.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks. Thanks so much for joining us today, Brad. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All righty, Mark. And same question to you. What brings you here today?
Well, I'm a Vice President of Sales for Southern Pipe and Supply Company. We're a privately held company in the wholesale distribution business, located primarily in the southeastern United States. I've been with the company 25 years.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Mark. And last but not least, alphabetically speaking, Tommy Thompson, bringing up the rear. Good morning, Tommy. How are you? Are you there, Tommy? Uh-oh. Gary, are you there? Can you still hear me, Gary? Can anybody hear me?
I've got you.
All right. Well, if someone can reach out to... Are you there? Is that you, Tommy? All right. Well, maybe, Gary, if you could give Tommy a call, see if we can get him connected. We'll go ahead and see if we can get him to join in here a little bit later. All right. So sort of going on with the next phase, I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about why you decided to go with MITS and really sort of what was happening in your company that led you to look for sort of analytics and reporting and how that kind of fit together. And I thought we'd go in chronological order, which would typically start with Tommy since they've been on MITS the longest. But I think we'll go ahead and skip him until we get somewhere that he's been able to reconnect to the broadcast here. And instead, Mark, let's go with you. So what was kind of happening with your company when you guys decided to take a look at a reporting solution, analytics solution, and how did MITS fit into that?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, we have 100 branch locations in the southeast, and they're broken down into 5 regions. And literally our operations and sales guys were just getting inundated with mountains of reports. There was report overload, if you will, and it was the question of what the data contained in those reports, whether it was timely and whether it was actionable. So we spent a lot of time sifting through information and trying to get to actionable data, and we just never felt comfortable that we were acting on timely information. So the biggest benefit we saw to MITS was trying to get to those decision points quicker through actionable data.
Yeah, gotcha. And then so as you went through and started looking at MITS, that seemed like a product that fit for you. Can you tell me a little bit about that process and how you guys approached that?
Yeah, we went through a fairly extensive due diligence process. We researched MITS fairly deeply, had several webinars and conference calls. I think the most important point to us was the ease of integration with our ERP. Connected very easily with SX.enterprise, which obviously we're on. The ease of use, the point and click, the drill down, and all the functionality in MITS was something that even non-technical people, which we have a great number of, could use. And then also I think the final thing was the adoption support. We got 800 employees across 7 states, and trying to get the key users to adopt MITS as a working solution felt like a challenge, and we had great support from you, Gary, Andy, and everyone else at MITS.
I appreciate that, Mark. That was a great experience that we were able to have there down coming and visiting you guys. Excellent. So, Brad, can you tell us a little bit about your process, which it was a little bit different than the ones that I've typically heard. So tell me about how you came into taking a look at analytics and reporting in MITS specifically.
Quick note version, we are also another user of SX, and coming from a sales background, I was one of those folks that was inundated with monthly reports, weekly reports, what's happening, and for quite a while we've been looking for better ways, more transparent, more efficient ways of communicating real-time data to our team. And I had been pushing for any type of tool that would do that, and unbeknownst to me, some folks were looking at you guys, and really when they found it, they said, hey Brad, we want you to take a quick look at this, give us your thoughts, and instantly once I started playing, I got very excited. What a tremendous opportunity to take a mountain of data, make it very transparent, very quickly, and very concisely.
Yeah, and just to let people know, Brad, that moment in which you started looking at MITS was pretty recent, wasn't it?
My very first touch with MITS was probably 90 days ago, and I would say 30 days ago I became very involved with it on a day-to-day basis and rolled it out to my team a week ago.
Yeah, gotcha. And Mark, you got, when did we come and visit? It's been a few months, right? 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, our rollout started about 6.5 months ago, and you came 4 or 5 months ago, and so we're 6.5 months into the process.
Yeah, and that was a great experience. I thought that actually worked out pretty well because some people in your team had a month or two to kind of play around on their own, and they had some good questions and some things that they were trying to do when we came down. So that seemed to work out pretty well from my perspective.
It worked out great from our perspective because there was an intimidation factor when you start talking about data and accumulating data and understanding what's important. And to steal your comment, Gary, we were trying to boil the ocean and how to break it down to its component parts. So we had a lot of non-technical people, and that 2-day rollout meeting really made them feel comfortable and gave them a sense of confidence about using this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just so everybody knows, the thing that we did with Mark and the team at Southern Pipe was what we call a business integration package, and it's something new that we started doing this year. What it is a couple of different ways that MITS as a company can engage with your company on sort of a combination of a business level and a tool level. So we have a lot of experience working in wholesale distribution from an analytics and reporting perspective, and clearly a lot of experience with the product. And so it's an opportunity for us to sort of get on the same page and try to accelerate getting over that sort of learning curve that Mark's kind of talking about there of, getting over that intimidation factor and really getting into it and trying to distill everything that's possible down into what we really should be doing, or where our best opportunities might lie. Cool. Tommy, did we get your audio figured out there?
Well, Gary, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I was trying to handle the echo that was going on in the room. I'll try and catch up a little bit, but
no problem.
I'm a Turner Supply Company, an independent industrial distributor located in Mobile, Alabama. We were established in 1905. I've been here since 1979. I'm 36 years, so I'm embedded pretty well with what we've done for years, and it was a bit of an eye-opener looking out amongst the association trade shows that we've attended at some of the business analytics programs that were out there. We manage about 9 branches, 2 service centers, and we're currently running on SX.enterprise. And I guess to dovetail into the follow-up question that you had on the slide, Gary, we've been with MITS since 2014, July, a little over a year. Effectively, we were collecting, many key data points that just needed to be measured and evaluated in a better way. Some of this was very specific to our customer reporting. Our ERP system, SX.e, like I think most ERP programs, it's great software for collecting data, but not so good on reporting the analytics needed today. We were simply behind the times. The time and the struggle that it took to generate information needed for customers and then internally, for measurements was just simply painful and exhausting. So we attended some trade associations, AD and ISA, and hooked up with Colin. Had a chance to see a 15-minute demo, and it was just kind of one of those out-of-the-box moments where you looked at it and said, I got to have that. And we were kind of off and running at that point.
Yeah. Now, if I recall, a couple of you guys had some existing tools that you had been trying to use at the time, right? Tommy, you were working with a different tool.
We were, and it's a good company. The name of the company was Focus. It's just a different style product. Matter of fact, we still have it, but we recognized to get where we needed to get to and to do the things we wanted to do, we needed out-of-the-box dashboard reporting, out-of-the-box reporting. We needed a product that was already integrated into our ERP system where we wouldn't have to spend so much time trying to reinvent the wheel. And we effectively wanted something that we could, intuitively manage ourselves as salespeople. Most of us are sales-driven. I didn't want to have a program where it took an IT geek to drive it. And some peers in our industry kind of recommended MITS. And when we looked at it, go a step further and see that you can build your own reports, build your own dashboards, and you can send those out on scheduled emails was just, kind of a home run for us.
Yeah, and that kind of dovetails a little bit, too, into the next piece that I wanted to pull out is, really sort of what is MITS and what is your experience been in sort of working with it and what is it about MITS and what it is and what it does that's been useful. And there's a couple pieces that you kind of mentioned in there. I think everybody had brought this up to one point or another. The fact that it's already connected to the SX system and that the work doesn't have to be done all over again in order to recreate those things. But then the other piece, I'm just kind of flipping around in slides here, is that combining that with the flexibility to build things on your own so that you're not stuck with what's already been created for you. And that was something that, Tommy, I remember you talked a fair bit about yesterday, is being sort of the combination of those two things. You want to, the key phrase I wrote down yesterday is that we're better editors than we are producers when it comes to that stuff.
Yes, I think especially being in a sales mind, I'm a fairly linear thinker, so I'm involved in the numbers quite a bit, but I'm much better at picking up somebody else's work and editing that and making the changes myself or asking that those changes be made. And MITS has been very supportive on the changes and the direction you guys are going, where we can pick and choose what we want on the dashboards is absolutely, I think, the sweet spot for distribution. We just don't have the time to marry up to a 300-page manual on how to drive a program and how to make the changes. So that's got to come easy to us, or it's got to be an easy outreach to the supplier to make those changes for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that seemed like, Mark, as well, something when we were on site that, as we started building out some custom dashboards with you guys, I think we kind of started from scratch. We didn't necessarily use the, see if I go back a couple slides here, we didn't go with the executive dashboard, which is the slide up here. We kind of looked at it to get some ideas, but then we said, hey, let's just pick a few key numbers and let's really focus in on those. Is that...
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that was a functionality that we've embraced. We committed one of our staff to be our MITS champion, and literally last week we were in a strategic planning meeting. We had the dashboard up on the screen. We were talking about some things. One of our regional managers asked, can I get this piece of data on the dashboard? Within 15 minutes we had it changed and had it up there, so it's pretty impressive. And that goes back to the adoption. When you can ask for specific data, put it on the dashboard, get it every day on schedule when you need that information, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So we've added a lot of customization, which is probably something that we tend to do because we want certain slices of information across all 5 regions to look the same.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent. I pulled another piece out here, Brad, that we had been talking about yesterday. I built a report that was, and I took a little screenshot of it here, that was kind of inspired by a thing you had mentioned yesterday in terms of getting in and using the product. Can you guess at what I was cluing in on here? You might not remember.
Sure, the zeros.
Yeah, there you go.
It was funny because during yesterday's conversation, when I turned this over to my teams, a lot of the guys in some of the canned reports that we generated had zeros, and they said, "Why all the zeros?" I said, "Because zeros represent opportunities." And when you can't see the zeros and you don't always see the opportunity in front of you, you're not always looking in the right direction. And MITS made that very transparent to our team. The other thing that it allowed us to do is very quickly recognize where declining sales trends were occurring so we could develop action plans. And all of that can happen very, very quickly once it's visible, which MITS allowed us to do.
Right, right. And that's a piece, and you know, we kind of talked about that, and I put it into some slides in the presentation, but that idea of, you know, making the data transparent in the company, you know, making it visible and bringing it out and highlighting that. And I think, you know, we as a company tend to think of that in terms of being more data-driven in the way you run your business and using analytics. There's all these ways that we kind of think of to describe that. But what does that mean for you guys? Like, as you've gone through this transition of using data more and more about your in your business, what pieces, or how would you kind of describe that, of going through that work? I know, Brad, that was something that you did with your reps as you were kind of going through and trying to educate them on that. How does that feel to you, or how would you describe that transition to others?
The transition was very, very well embraced. As I mentioned earlier, historically we've been generators of mountains of papers, reports, and in many cases people would have to spend a fair amount of time to really digest the content. And now with the report generating capabilities, the dashboards, the scorecards, you can literally get a very quick snapshot of all of the main components of data that you're looking for on one side of one piece of paper.
Yeah.
And that's really a remarkable time savings, it's a cost savings, and once again, it enables you a faster response time to develop an action plan.
Yeah. Yeah, but you didn't find the pushback to be too fierce among those that you're trying to get to use the tool?
Not at all. If anything, I was very surprised at how quickly it was embraced. Like I said, we did a rollout officially a week ago Friday. By Saturday, I was getting emails because there were tasks that were set up for our guys to learn, and the majority of my team decided to spend their weekend to learn how to use it because they were so excited, which really caught me off guard, surprised me, and I'm overly optimistic that that's going to continue to develop, and the excitement's going to carry throughout our company.
Hey, Gary, I might comment as a follow-up to that. At Turner Supply Company, the same thing. There was an awful lot of excitement as it relates to, you know, being more transparent. Traditionally in the past, we were reporting out, you know, a summary number by customer, by sales rep, and sometimes we didn't get down to the granular level enough for them. And when they saw that they could actually see that, and they saw that management could see that, needless to say, there could be some concerns because the zeros are typically what we're looking at. But it also highlighted and spotlighted the wins and the victories and the trends where we were actually doing a great job. So the recognition by those people that typically need it and want it the most, which is salespeople, it did allow us to look at the other end of the spectrum where we are succeeding, where we're winning, and try and reward that performance when it's there. So it's been a bit of a pushback initially, but once people adopted it and saw the transparency to it, they've taken a little bit more of the accountability role under their wing and embraced that.
Very cool. And Mark, what's your experience been like with that? I mean, I know what it was like when I was there, and we were sort of talking through it. But since that trip, how have you found it to be working as you guys are trying to roll it out? Obviously, you've got a pretty large organization that's going to be a phased approach. But what are you guys' experiences today like?
Yeah, I heard the word excitement. There was an awful lot of that. There is awful lot of that around MITS. All of our regional managers, which is the lowest level we've rolled it out to date, are our regional managers. They're sharing it with their individual direct reports. We haven't opened it up directly to our branch managers yet. That's the next phase, which is starting this month, this coming month. But there's been a lot of excitement, the transparency and the flexibility. You know, it's one thing to say to a branch manager, sales are off X%. That's a great big number, but when you can drill down into that and see it's off with these 5 accounts or these 5 product categories, or you can drill down and see, again, this is actionable data. Tommy used the term granular. You get it down to a granular, actionable point, and you can also see where your sales are up. So that makes it very powerful and meaningful to a branch manager or a sales rep who are charged with making those numbers go the other direction, right?
Right. Yeah, and I've wondered about that. As we were talking about transparency a little bit, yesterday, and these points that you guys are making, that there are wins and there are losses, and exposing those and just saying, well, here they are. It seems like the fear of the losses, the fear of seeing where things are going poorly, sort of prevents people from getting in and fixing those issues, or also sort of looking for the wins. That's something that we've tried to build into some of our pre-built content, which is that we're not always just looking at the negative things. We're sometimes looking at the positive things, because those are opportunities to replicate. What are we doing with these accounts that we're doing right, and how do we do that other places as well? So there's opportunities on both sides. So I was going to ask, Tommy, you had a couple things to say about the pricing analysis piece that you were kind of excited about. Can you tell me a little more about that? Didn't have all of my notes. Yeah.
Well, I think most of us in the distribution business recognize, what the pricing piece is the most important part of what we can do with our customers beyond the service. And sometimes that pricing analysis is put to the side, and we don't really recognize maybe what's going on until we get some, numbers and start drilling down. So we recently implemented a strategic pricing program where we're getting much more structure around our pricing out the door to our customers. And much of that is going to be about compliance. And while we don't want to take away pricing authority totally from our inside customer service team, because we value their tribal knowledge and their knowledge of the industry and their customers, you don't know what you don't know till you look at it. So it was nice to see that MITS had a pretty good out-of-the-box program that would connect into SX, which would look at any price that was overridden, modified, manual price, a lot of different ways you can look at it. You can drill into that by customer. You can drill into it by inside order taker or field sales rep. So we have just now started implementing that program, and they'll get their accountability benchmark scorecard, so to speak, on a monthly basis and see how they're trending. And while we don't expect everybody to move to 100% because there's good reasons to override prices, we absolutely want to see the percent override trend heading the other way, which is either going to force him to get it into contract pricing where it should be, where we can all be better order entry people, where if one person's out, the other person can key it in correctly, so we got accuracy there. And then at the same time, it allows us to track what margin we could have received had we sold it at the price that we should have sold it for.
Yeah, there are two words in there, Tommy, that I think are really sort of interesting when you put them together. The first is, and this is a little bit of a paraphrase, but you're giving people authority to do things. You're giving people authority to set prices, or a whole bunch of other things, right? We give people in our organizations authority to do stuff all the time. But when we add a report or analytics or data or a dashboard, kind of like the pricing one I've got up here, what you're adding to the whole thing is some accountability of here is what is actually going on, and we're raising that visibility. We're making you accountable, and so you have the authority, but we're gonna ask you about what you're doing. We're gonna hold you accountable for the decisions that you're making. Did you guys sort of think of those things in this way, or is that just sort of how it naturally falls out? That to me seems to be.
We thought we had a real strategic approach to it. We knew what we wanted to do, but the concerning piece was the accountability. And SX does have a report that will generate out any day, any week, any month that you want that shows price overrides, but you would cover yourself up with paper if you got 160 employees like we do trying to track what was an override and why was it overridden. We can drill directly into it and understand it now. It creates conversation between us and the customer service rep on what's going on within that territory, why are we overriding prices. It helps us get our prices right, I think, in the marketplace going forward. And at the same time, much of our industry has become a cost-plus mentality industry, and it's just ludicrous to sell Teflon tape that costs 20 cents for cost plus 20% and think you're making money. So we think we can drill into those details and move the bar on gross margin with the existing business.
Right. And Mark, I remember talking a fair bit about this stuff on site as well.
Yeah, price overrides has always been a huge challenge for us, and I listened to Tommy. I agree with everything he said. We too want to use that local expertise for price management, but we do have a pricing structure, and when someone overrides from that, there's something amiss when that happens. It may be market conditions that our pricing structure is not aware of, but when we get an override, it gives us an opportunity to go back to that person and talk to them about it, and then look at our pricing to see if it does need to be adjusted. The problem that we always had, the SX reports were always last month's overrides. Well, you know, today's the 24th of the month, and we're worried about closing out this month, so we're not too interested in what happened in August anymore. With MITS, we're looking at what happened last night, and we're reacting to it this morning. And so we've written some reports, especially around overrides by user, by customer, so that we're getting that notification in the morning. These pricing overrides are happening now. Let's act on them now so that they don't continue on from you know, in perpetuity. So we're really excited about the opportunity to manage our margins with MITS.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And there are a couple pieces there that you guys both said that I think are really cool. You know, there's the sort of local knowledge, you know, when you've got a rep that knows a customer in a particular area and a particular product, and you know, there is an opportunity for that person to make a better decision about the price than what's built into the pricing matrix. So that idea that you can take that information and, like you said, Tommy, have that conversation around, oh, well, now you see that I'm doing this and we both see what's going on. Now we can talk about why it is, and we can elevate our conversation and our decision making to the next level because we see the information, it's there, it's visible, and we can do something about it. And that something might be the rep needs to change their behavior, or that something might be that the pricing needs to be updated. Cool. Well, so moving along a little bit here, you know, we've been talking a fair bit about what your guys' experience has been with and just sort of working with MITS. So I think I might kind of slide past this a little bit, and we'll see if we can get a couple other pieces in here. Adoption was one that we've sort of sprinkled around a little bit. I wondered if maybe you guys could just answer a little bit more directly those kind of questions of like who's using the software, you know, who should be using it that isn't using it yet, how are you rolling it out, a little bit around those, which we've heard some pieces of, but I'd be curious to hear how that's worked. And let's go in reverse chronological order, which I guess is alphabetical. So how about Brad? How's that rollout going at your guys' company?
Like I mentioned, we just started to roll it out. Vesco has many different divisions, and in order to really adapt this program, we start small and start with one group, which I very eagerly volunteered to pilot the program. And like I had mentioned earlier, it was the overwhelming excitedness to embrace this by my team is just overall very exciting. Instantly, some of our guys identified opportunities. Within 1 week, one of my guys came back and he said, hey, I identified a problem, I acknowledged a problem, and I've already made up half the lost sales just by understanding where they were at. When you have that transparency, the program's going to sell itself because those guys make more money.
You know, though, I have heard other people say that they expected the software to sell itself, but that it hasn't, and there had to be more structure around a rollout plan. Do you guys have anything do any of you have experiences like that where you have pockets inside your company that are slower to adopt than others? Tommy, I think you've been on the software the longest. Have you noticed that?
Yes, and we would, if I had it to do over again, I'd have had a more structured environment for the rollout. I took the champion role because I'm so engaged and involved with different parts of our business. But at the same time, I'm in and out an awful lot, so you lose some of the continuity there. It became a sales dominant piece for me because I tend to lead the sales side of things. We've just recently rolled it out to the inventory management procurement side. Eventually, we'll roll it out to AR. I mean, SX is pretty structured. I mean, pretty strong around the AP piece, but I think that what MITS has to offer could help quite a bit. But I would have had a more structured environment if I had it to do over again in terms of a rollout.
Interesting. Okay. And Mark, we did something a little bit more structured in that we came on site, but since then, you guys have been running with it. So how's that working out?
Yeah, I think we have tried to stick to a structure. We've got our MITS champion. Absolutely controls. He's our administrator. He's also testing MITS for us in different functions. So we've got our accounting folks using the General Ledger Hypercube some.
That's right.
Writing some reports. Our sales team, through our regional managers, are being exposed to MITS. But as I said, we haven't opened it up to our branch managers until this next month. We're going to roll it out to a test group for them to use. So we're trying to phase it in very carefully and slowly, and it's working for us so far that way. We've actually been getting a fair number of information requests, report requests, alert requests, that type of thing, which just, I think, goes to the excitement that everybody's feeling about being able to access this data so timely.
Yeah, very cool. Something you guys all mentioned at one phase or another, either today or in our previous conversations, was that idea of a champion. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what that means for each of you. What is that champion role? What do they do? How are they making this be more effective and sort of helping the rollout? Does anybody want to take a stab at that?
I'll talk about it, Gary. Our champion came through our IT department, and he was instrumental in when we went to SX and rolled it out. He knows our ERP forwards and backwards, so he knows how to connect all the dots there. And then once we mapped it, or once MITS mapped SX for us, we had all this data. He's managing the reports that we were getting out of SX that we've migrated to MITS that are more daily, more timed reports. He's managing our dashboards and the development, and also within MITS reports, he's writing some custom reports for us and some queries that if this happens, an alert goes out. If an item falls below a minimum on-hand balance, for instance, an alert goes out to that branch manager. And so those types of things is why we felt it was so important to have a champion. And we were fortunate. We've got a guy who's very technically minded and who helped us integrate SX through our operating procedures, and so it's been really nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of the champion on the technical side. Is there like a business champion, Mark, someone that's telling the regional managers that, what they should be doing or setting goals, or does that just kind of fall out of part of the way you guys have your management structure and the way that team works?
No, I think from a macro view, I'm the MITS champion from a business perspective and selling the regional managers on it. We actually present, our management team meets monthly, typically in person, but sometimes by webinar. And we make a presentation each month about where we are on MITS, what we've learned, what's going on, what's the next exciting thing. So we're continually trying to push that to the regional managers, who will then push it to their branch managers, and then ultimately our territory manager sales reps.
Gotcha. Tommy or Brad, do you guys have any thoughts on that champion role that would be useful to share with everyone?
Yes, and I made a comment earlier that the champion does not need to be an IT geek kind of guy, but maybe I need to soften that tone a little bit. If you've got somebody that can serve that role and they also know the business real well, then that's ideal. That's great because they can walk both sides of that fence. I didn't feel here at Turner we had that. We have a strong IT department, not quite as engaged in our everyday, day-to-day business, so I kind of took the role of the business side champion and try and lean on the IT people when needed. But I did like what I heard when Mark said that, you had a monthly meeting where people had to report back, the do's and don'ts and what they learned on MITS that month. I think that would be a nice way to kind of roll it out. If I had to do it over again, I would get more people involved in the rollout instead of just myself.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy, those meetings are with our management team, and so those are the guys who are going to be responsible for pushing it throughout the organization. So every month it's more of a, we're able to show them something more and give them a little more exposure to MITS, and I think that keeps excitement ramped up. And our champion is he's a very technically oriented guy, but he's probably the anti-geek. He's and he knows our system very well, which I think was the most important thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, though. I think what you guys are talking about, like, if you have these fantastic dashboards and reports, but you haven't started to create a culture in the company where people, are using that data to sort of measure and gauge how successful they're being in different aspects of their jobs, and then it will sort of die down over time. You ideally have some sort of process or sort of a frequent check-in, whether that's a monthly or quarterly or weekly kind of thing, where you're saying, hey, let's sit down and let's all talk about these numbers, and it builds, the software raises the visibility, but the accountability really actually comes from the fact that other people can see it, and we all are talking about it and asking questions about it, and in our experience, those are the types of organizations that do adopt and integrate the software faster because they already have a framework where you're sort of plugging the tool into, but that it's kind of a management culture thing more than it is a technology thing.
Garrett, it's Tommy. I might comment on the ability to structure those dashboards and reports like you want that we've talked about. We took the sales dashboard by sales rep and effectively converted most of the metrics in there to gross margin rather than sales, because that's pretty much what drives our business. And we didn't look at just where we were last year versus where we were this year. We set up a budget stream for each sales rep, field sales rep, and effectively it's a roll-up of a budget that's attached to each customer. So they get their weekly dashboard or daily dashboard as often as they want to look at it. It's emailed out in a PDF format so they can open it easily and look at it. They don't have to go search out and sign on to MITS to do it, and they can see where they are pretty much on any given day of a month or month of the year, where they are against their budget, and they are paid commissions when they exceed that budget, and they can actually drill down into the customer level and see where they are against budget with a particular customer. So it empowered them to understand where they are at any given time.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about that transparency piece. And there's one thing I wanted to bring into the conversation, because we've kind of talked around transparency and all that, but this is another piece of it that I just wanted to make sure that we brought up for everyone on the call today is, how the security components and the transparency all sort of fit together. Because I know there was one of the things we talked about before was, Brad, you actually had one of the modules you guys decided to remove from your system because you didn't have a way that you felt like you could effectively secure the data enough to expose it and make it useful inside the company. So are you guys using the security module to roll specific data sets out to everyone, or are you giving everybody access to everything? How have you guys approached that?
We have a very controlled rollout, granting access to people really the information that they need, and we've done that for many different reasons. Probably the biggest reason was to simplify the rollout. MITS is so comprehensive and there's so many available features to it. It can take somebody's breath away at first. So by limiting what they had access to, only what they needed, really, I guess, eliminated or just shortened the learning curve for many of our team. And it also provided us with a level of security that we were comfortable with. And as we learn more, we'll probably share more data.
Yeah, but it wasn't an all or nothing kind of thing. You've sort of taken little pieces and given them to the people that can make use of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Important point as we're talking about transparency. So one thing I want to do, we're hoping that we could clean up or finish up here about quarter till. Looks like we might run a little bit long, but I was just wondering if you guys had advice. of other people that are thinking of going through this kind of transition, should I make this leap? Are there ways to do research that would be helpful? Are there, sort of lessons learned or things like that? I know, Mark, you've got a hard stop here you're up against, so why don't we start with you?
Well, yeah, I would absolutely encourage anyone, especially in the distribution business, to leap into being more data-driven. It's surprising how much time you spend trying to get to information and then trying to figure out how to act on that information. One of the components that we use MITS for is our vendor point of sales tracking. We are in 7 states, so we overlap with a lot of manufacturers' sales territories. They need that data back to them timely. We can give it to them certainly monthly, and even more than that if we wanted to. Also, we use it for claim back tracking from some of our vendors. We're in the HVAC business, so there's a lot of that goes on. Highly complicated process in the past, and we've streamlined it using MITS. So it's some of the surprises we found are some of the more arduous tasks that we have been doing for the last 78 years. Trying to get to information, we've been able to streamline using MITS. So it's a very good tool for managing to your objectives, what you're trying to achieve. It helps you focus on those really key performance indicators that mean something to you and maybe not so much to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a ton, Mark. I know that you've got to jump to your next meeting, so I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. Sorry I've got to back out.
Not at all. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, Brad, Tommy, what other advice would you like to throw out for folks? Sometimes the best time to go through and give that type of advice, stuff I wish I knew, before I started this process, or things about the way that I went about it that I could have done differently that I think would have been
decisions, small and large, much faster. The velocity of the business has moved exponentially over the last 5 years. So, MITS has allowed us to quickly make informed decisions, with current and historical data that's accurate. It allows us to respond to suppliers and customers much quicker than we ever could before. It allows us to dig in to the trends sooner rather than later. And I guess, if I had to put it in a nutshell, it just allows me to be much more intelligent with what's going on in our business at a much more granular level that starts by looking at the 40,000-foot level. It kind of puts you in the driver's seat as to what's going on in your business. And for me, it was like a pay raise in terms of running this business.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Brad, any thoughts or advice you wanted to tack onto that?
Gary, I don't know if I have enough insight yet. Rolling this out officially about a week ago, we're still kind of at that phase. We don't even know what we don't know yet. But overall, start to finish of a rollout in about 30 days with, included in that was my learning curve time, then trying to disseminate that information quickly and easily. And overall, it's gone remarkably well. I'm very excited. I can't wait to see how the company embraces this. And in regards to the rollout, maybe if I'd spent a little bit more time, I keep wanting to go back and saying if I should have done this or I should have done this. But every day I'm learning more and more about MITS. And it's really a journey.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that we've noticed too, is that some companies will go the opposite approach. They will be very, very careful about what they expose and what they roll out. And the regret on that side is that there were things you could be doing if you just started faster, right? So that's kind of the flip side, is that it's possible that you jump in too quickly and you miss an opportunity to get everybody using it, or you go too slow and then you have a bunch of people that would have done like what a lot of the members of your team are doing, which is immediately dig in, and those people have to wait a long time, and now you've got 3 or 4 or 5 months where they're not using this information that they could be using it, and what's the lost opportunity of 6 months worth of people not doing their job as effectively as they could. So it's sort of both sides of it, I think.
Gary, I might comment. One thing I had to do was scale back a little bit because there is so much, and I pretty much focus on, I'd say 4 to 6 dashboards instead of all of the dashboards. I know what's out there. I modified some of them, but I think if you take that project a piece at a time rather than all at one time, and narrow the scope down a little bit, pick out 4 to 6 dashboards that you want to streamline into your strategic planning committee group and with your managers. Pick 5 to 10 reports that are very important to your business rather than look at all 300 reports that might be out there, because you can structure any report that comes up to look slightly different. And then work on building a few reports that are specific to your company only. Then that to me is pretty much where I landed. And once I was able to get my arms around that, then you can drive out from there very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an approach that we've seen be successful. It is that sort of, maybe it's sort of the business champion role or something that champion fits well with. It's also a little bit of what the business integration program that we talked about we're trying to do, but it's that idea of, okay, we've got all these different possibilities. How do we turn that into something we're going to use now and that's going to be useful and isn't going to be overwhelming for people that are not as adept at just taking a look at the fire hose and saying, okay, how do we boil this down into what we're really going to manage our business on? Cool. Oh, let's see. Geez, I had another thought. Oh, it's gone now. That's what I get for not writing it down. There was some stuff, Tommy, that you had mentioned about going into the process of evaluating MITS that I thought was kind of interesting. I pulled up here. It sounds like, was it you guys, I'm trying to remember, that actually went and just watched some of our videos off of our website, off of the MITS.com and off of our YouTube channel in order to get the sort of early orientation of what the product is and how it works, and then went through the process that way. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct. I saw it at a convention, had some discussions with Colin, went back that evening actually in the hotel room, jumped into the MITS video library, and then just went online and Googled it through YouTube. And then, the next logical step after that was to ask for an online WebEx demo with your group, and it was a fairly painless process making the decision. We knew we wanted to do it, and then we were up and running within 30 days. So that was surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And Brad, were you involved in the original purchase decision on MITS?
I was brought in towards the tail end, just based on my interest in numbers and crunching numbers and looking at different things. But I was not involved in the early research. I think it was probably, I would say, last hour when I was really brought into this, Gary.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, so then I guess, Brad, as you've been orienting yourself on the software, then, since the decision was kind of already in process, you weren't in the early phase of doing that. What were your early phases of learning the software like?
First thing I did is went to the webinars that you guys offer, just kind of took a look at, there's so much that it offers, and I've used the expression a couple times, we didn't even know what we didn't know. Right. And there's so much that you can do within MITS, and that was one of my greatest challenges with learning was I have to understand and determine what I want first. Yeah. Because you can do just about anything you want. So I guess I'll use the term mind mapping. I developed mentally what I wanted a report to have, what was the critical data, and through watching your webinars and various tutorials that you have, was able to back into creating those. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. It's a very intuitive program, easy to use, yet very powerful.
Cool. That's great. So in the meantime, guys, as we've been talking, we've gotten a couple of questions that people have popped into the Q&A panel. If you guys do have additional questions, feel free to put those in there. We'll try and get them answered. There was one theme in some of the questions that came in here that I thought I'd ask you guys. We didn't talk about this before here, so I have no idea how we'll be able to answer these, but let's give it a shot. We've had a couple questions about adding additional pieces of information into your MITS installation. And I know, Brad, you're kind of in the early phases, so you're still taking a look at what's there. So you guys probably haven't added a lot to your MITS installation in the last 30 days. Is that true in terms of additional data or additional fields or things coming from the SX system?
That is an accurate statement, yes.
Now, Tommy, though, you guys have been on for a little over a year now, right? So have you guys been extending MITS? Have you been doing that on your own? I think there's at least one additional module that you guys added from us in the meantime. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're getting more data? Like, are you guys using any user-defined fields in SX or other maybe customizations or stuff like that have been brought into your system?
We have not started down that path with customization from user-defined fields, but we will, because I recognize the need for it as we desire to roll some dashboard reporting out to some of our integrated supply customers. And we want, it's a customer-facing report, so there's certain things we don't want them to see, and obviously a whole lot of things that we do want them to see is specific to their business. So we're capturing all that in the ERP system we have with SX, so it'll be easy to map that in. I won't do that. It'll either be our guys or your people that will assist us in doing that. The pricing hypercube piece, we just rolled that in here, I guess 3 weeks ago. So, we're trying to understand the definitions of all that as we, bolt that onto our whole strategic pricing program that we plugged in at Turner. So we've not done any customization, but I will say when you get out into the reports and you run any given report, the ability to customize that report right out of MITS it's just, if you can imagine it and you can think it, you can pretty much build it. And the user-defined fields are in there, and if they're not mapped in, it's just because you've chosen not to map them. But there's an awful lot of data that pulls up that's available right out of the SX system that you can pull over into any of those reports.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Mark would have been a good one to answer this too, because I know that they've been mapping a bunch of additional data into their system, especially MITS report. I know they've been pretty active on that, so he would have a few additional comments to add. But yeah, I think you guys hit on those points pretty well. We've tried to pull as much data in as possible, but again, also trying to balance against that concern we talked about a little bit earlier, which is if you put too much in there, it almost makes it too difficult to get started and to get oriented and figure out what you're going to use to start with. So, okay. Well, that's fantastic, guys. That's the outline and the agenda that I kind of wanted to go through some of those different points and pieces that we had talked about before that I wanted to pull out. Were there any other final closing thoughts or things like that that you guys remember we talked about that you thought was important to make note of?
You talking about to the panelists, ourselves, Gary?
Sure. Yeah. And of course, guys,
it's been a great program. I mean, it's carried us to the next level with our customers and our suppliers. As I mentioned, it kind of put us in the driver's seat. It's been a window for us of KPIs and metrics that were out there, but we really weren't managing them. So now we can place some accountability behind them. So it's improved our business performance since we've been on it, and I expect it to continue that path.
Well, that's just great. Brad, any additional final closing thoughts?
We are very much looking forward to really find out all the future benefits that we're not even aware are within the MITS program. Every day I continue to receive positive feedback from my team. Didn't know it could do this, couldn't do this. So overall, we're just beginning, and I just see so many phenomenal things coming in future days, weeks, years with this program. And from a sales perspective, this highlights opportunity which highlights financial opportunities for sales folks.
Yeah.
So great program.
Well, that's
Gary, I guess, we're all a little apprehensive when it's software related.
Yeah.
When you purchase a piece of software, it's going to be never ending. This is out of the box, not much work to do. You get out of it what you put in it. You can pull the user-defined fields in like you're talking about, budget codes like we did. But at the end of the day, it's painless. So it's not going to be a lot of work on anybody's part. It's going to produce dividends right out of the gate.
Oh, that's great. And you know, I'm so grateful to, you know, have this opportunity to talk with you guys, because the things that you're saying are things that we say in part of our marketing and our sales process. You know, this is information that we want to get out there into, especially the TUG group has been such a great partnership for us and a great user group that we are really happy to support. You know, but knowing that that is the truth, the things that we're saying in our sales and marketing process, that those really are the truth of doing business with MITS as a company, to me as the president is just really it's just really pleasing, because it means that the things that are going on in the engineering and the implementation and the support side and the sales department, all those things that the company is executing well and is being authentic and true to who we are and what we're trying to do as a company. And so I'm really grateful for you guys coming on today. I'm really grateful for the user group here for hosting this webinar. And if you guys have any more information that you want to know, our website is MITS.com. You can go there to learn more. You can always email me. I'm Gary O at MITS.com. If you're not already a MITS customer, Nick is our account executive that specializes in the SX.e and A+ markets, and so you can fire him. His email address is right there. You can fire him an email. He can always get you more detailed information, get you set up for a demo, which would be a fantastic way to learn a whole bunch more. And of course, we will be at the next TUG meeting, which is next year. And I think, Gary, that's a good time for me to hand things back to you if you're still here.
I'm still here, and I think it was a good webinar, and you are ending right on time. So thanks for the presentation. Thanks to all who participated, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.